Yes.
I mean, the fact that you concede defeat, for instance,
yes,
or that you called, maybe not concede defeat, but maybe you called to say, this is what INEC is saying right now, this is what we're saying. Opponents, congratulations. However, because there are areas I still believe that, you know, things need to be challenged, I'm going to challenge it. Are they mutually exclusive?
Sorry, there are three angles of election.
Just Senator Rishi answer this.
I mean, let's compare the situations that we're discussing. Yes, President Buhari went to court several times. But the latest norm in our politics is that a sitting president considered defeat moving forward, not because it was a perfect election, not because he didn't have issues to raise, but he said, okay, for the interest of this country, let's move forward. That is the minimum that we're operating with now. It's not to say that it's wrong for Atiku to go to court, but we are saying this is taking us back. Now, there is no election that is perfect, that has ever been perfect in this country. And of course, the fact that the president has said that, look, he will look at whatever needs, because we are moving to the next level. And part of moving to the next level is the fact that I believe he should go ahead now and sign the new Electoral Act, ensure that we have electronic voting embedded in our Constitution.
Sorry, you haven't quite answered my question. I was asking if they're mutually exclusive. Congratulating your opponent and going to court. Don't they work hand in hand?
Well,
or can't they work hand in hand?
That's one way to look at it. But when you do that, it becomes, what do you really want? If he goes ahead to say, I've congratulated you, and I say, okay, now I'm going to court to challenge your election, I think the two are a little bit contradictory. They cannot work pari passu. That's my feeling. Because if you congratulate your opponent and say, okay, congratulations, I've considered defeat, so why do you now want to go to court again? But you can still do that because it's happened before. If you feel that, okay, the fact that you are now saying after might compel you to say you want to go to court. But in the first instance, you have done the noble thing.
Perhaps to quell the tension, for instance. I mean, the tension usually because of the collation process and the manual process that INEC adopts to do some of these things, sometimes keeps people on the edge. But let's quickly go to Lagos now and take some questions from there. Chamberlain?
Well, yes, I've got a question for both of you. I'd like to start with Senator Rishi. What do you think, how should we approach this? Would it be a bad idea if in this country we do something about the winner-takes-all system that we've got? How do we incorporate the opposition? Would it be a bad idea if we bring them into government in one way or the other so that all of this acrimony that we get after elections is dealt with? So, Senator Rishi, you first before Dr. Okegwu responds.
Yes, there is nothing wrong in bringing opposition into government, particularly even under the presidential system of government. There's nothing wrong. You can identify people who are very knowledgeable in some areas. As a matter of fact, when you take ideas from people, from different people, you learn more. So there is nothing wrong in bringing in those that you feel have actually worked very hard and that they have a lot of things to contribute to the development and growth of the country. It's perfectly okay, but it's difficult when people have worked for you. Now for you to just say you are going to take people who have worked against you to be in the majority, they can constitute a percentage of the cabinet if the president so desires. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm all for that.
Doctor, you?
Well, I think for you to even begin to interrogate that question, you must be able to look at the three major factors in an election: free, fair, credible. Because that's the only way you can begin to now build these synergies of now probably building governments of national unity. People lose fairly and they lose squarely. It's going to be a tough call in Nigeria. except we are able to make certain that our electoral systems are free, fair, and credible. That way, people lose without any anger in them. They lose believing that, okay, fine, it was a fair fight. I'm going to congratulate my opponent, and I'm going to move on. Including them in national government would also be a tough call, because you have the party playing a very major role. And what we have in Nigeria are actually very bitter contests, where you have, somebody now, everything is thrown at it. Mudslinging, backstabbing, murder, whatever. And because we don't have a legal system that suits the pains of people, people are able to get justice when they are offended. Now, having this reconciliation becomes a little more difficult at some certain level. But again, if an opposition person is going into politics because he wants to get employed in government, I think that is wrong. But if somebody has the skills and capacities that can be able to help in developing our country, that is a different kettle of fish. I don't think what should qualify you to get into government will be that you're an opposition party. I think what should qualify you to play your own role, and you don't have to be a government personnel to do that. If you had, the enabling environment for the private sector, to play. A lot of us are very comfortable, working in the private sector. So I think in all, the major issues is that we must be able to tighten an electoral process. And in this instance, I do not blame any other person as much as I put all the whole blame on INEC. We must be able to look at the process. Does INEC say what it does? Can it do what it says? Have they done what they say they would do? Has anybody actually put INEC on the spot? I was here in a program. Fortunately, it was a Chamberlain and I was here with the national one of the officers of INEC, and he said elections were going to start by 8 o'clock and they are going to end by 2. And I said to him, this is not possible. The same man has come out to now say, oh no, we couldn't start elections because of logistics problems. We now had to now achieve about 80–90% by 12 o'clock in an election that's supposed to be starting by 2 or stopping by 2. So these are all the issues. We're just not only talking about congratulating. We should also make certain that we investigate those that make certain, policy statements or what you call the service charter. These are the things that can be able to blend all of us so that election in Nigeria doesn't become what it's become now, a war. And then people are saying, oh, in the interest of the nation so that we don't deepen this rift. If we need to deepen the rift to be able to close it properly, I am for let us be able to make certain that we'll have a process, okay? All right, sir. That strictly adheres to the principles of a contest.
Okay, let me ask you one more question, sir, and then I'm sure that Senator Arishe would also want to weigh in on that. You talked about one thing that the president said, and which is the fact that election is not war, and I believe, just as you have said, he is not alone, on that. But how do we percolate that ideology, that peace ideology, to the foot soldiers of the political class, so that when, after signing all of that, other people will also get the philosophy of what they're talking about? We lost so many lives in 2011, 2015, and a number of people have also died in this election. That should stop. How do we percolate that information down the ladder?
Very, very simple. Our judicial system. The moment you have a justice system that is responsive and quick, you had pictures of people, you had videos of people. Everybody who committed one electoral offense or the other was captured. I mean, we're in the age where, as you're running with the ballot box, everybody in the world is looking at you. Police are safe, they have made about that. I mean, I was listening to the IG of police this morning. 2 policemen lost their lives. Has anybody been charged for murder? 300 people have been arrested. Have they been charged? Which courts are you charging them? Do we have any special court so that, I mean, in 3–6 months, you know what it is I've committed. The offenses are very clear. You don't need any much investigations. You saw a guy carrying a ballot box. There is an offense for people who now, interrupt elections. Are they in courts? They were supposed to be in courts like yesterday. So if you begin to now make certain that, like they say in America, you do crime, you do time. The moment we introduce that, my brother, then we're going to be having a system where you go out there at the risk of understanding that if you do this, these are the consequences. And then there will be no mercy.
Well, thank you. From the perspective I'm going to look at it is what we can do, to ensure that those who take politics as war do not succeed in terms of ballot snatching, alteration of results, and stuff like that. And I believe that the government will be moving in the direction of electronic voting. First, the issue of INEC not being able to get to where they were supposed to be at 8 o'clock. We can eliminate some of this by going into this electronic voting. The logistic nightmare of printing ballot paper, of moving them around, carrying them, going to central bank, all those things, the transportation, the vehicles can break down. It's a lot of nightmare, when it comes to the logistic of the system that we practice at the current time. And of course, there's technology in place. I understand that little Estonia, just last week, voted online. For their people, it's a smaller country. But let's even begin with electronic voting.
India does electronic voting. They're bigger than we are.
Exactly. There's so many countries actually doing that now. But the moment we move into that, we continue to improve from election to election. When we move into that, I know some other challenges will be thrown up. Then we'll find a way of resolving those. And we have progressed from 1999 significantly to where we are today. Now, if we are to sustain the idea of multiple parties, including mushroom parties, being on the ballot paper, we have to go electronic. Because look at the presidential ballot paper. So many presidential candidates, so big, so huge, you are confused even with the, as literate, I have to be looking for the logo of my party. Now, imagine somebody who is not so lettered. You call somebody, so come and show the person. So when we move in the direction of electronic voting, we get machines that are large enough. You just press the logo of the party.
Do you think that parties should be streamlined for the presidential elections?
I believe it should even be streamlined for all elections. Because there is no business going in there to just go and put your name, you want to be president, and you don't even have structures, not even within a zone. Not to talk of nationally.
I'm sure you would disagree with him.
Yeah. You see,
let me tell you what...
Just a moment.
What happened?
Let him weigh in on this.
Let me tell you what structures are. Yes. Each time I'm sure you'll be hearing structure. They are not physical structures. They are human beings.
Sure.
Okay? Now, so what it means for you to be able to have a structure in every local government is that you have a representative, okay, who probably can operate under a tree. You
don't think that the parties, the smaller parties, should win at least the local elections first?
For me, I mean, I don't even remember this conversation I had with you some time ago. I said to you, I am not even interested in the national elections. I'm interested in grooming young men under 45 who will take over the state houses of assembly. That is the ideology of my party. That was what we wanted to achieve, okay? Because we believe at the moment you rein in the state government. If you have young men sitting in state houses of assembly, then you begin to now change the conversation because it's about their future. Because everything that has gone wrong with our system, you can actually trace it to that at that subnational level between the local government and the state assemblies and the state government. So when somebody says to you, oh, structure, you're talking about, oh, capacity to be able to spend billions. But can I tell you something? And this will shock you.